And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Jamie Vos Love, international medium, channeler, and ET experiencer. She was a Starseed speaker at the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo, Missouri MUFON, the 1111 Gateway event, and Codes of Ascension. Jamie, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Well, it's great to have you. And I would like to start with your awakening experience.
Sure. So in 2009, I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and just at the time, kind of seemingly going about my business. I was there for a work conference, and it was the morning of June 21st, so on the summer solstice that year. And I just felt this wave of ecstasy hit me, this cosmic bliss, this knowing that came alive inside of me that we were all connected. Um, Everything looked very vibrant in nature. So the colors kind of popped that day. I had this knowing that anything that I kind of had ever been angry for at anyone or even myself was just completely irrelevant. So forgiveness was just there and present. And I just felt self love, unconditional love, and a knowing that something really big was going to happen. So that's sort of how it started. And I will say that leading up to that, there was this dream that I had that felt very significant.
Did this happen to you during that dream? And if not, were you meditating or what was going on?
Sure. No, I had a dream a few months before what I would consider this awakening experience, this wave of energy that hit me on that particular day and time. So the dream was a dream where I was walking through these tables of people that had chains. Okay. And I saw this light. In the distance, so a light in a doorway. And I remember just looking to the left, looking to the right, seeing everybody in chains, and then knowing I had to go to the light. And so I went through the light, and I felt, as soon as I crossed over into that light, I felt like this really strong vibration. And I saw this tree, which, I can imagine it as the tree of life, but it kind of became like a significant symbol along my journey. And when I walked through and felt that vibration and that light, I felt the presence of my great grandmother who had passed away years prior. And so I didn't really connect that with my awakening. I was just like, wow, that was a really profound dream. And then reflecting back on it, it felt very symbolic of just kind of the chains of humanity and the suffering that we endure and how we're, ascending or moving to this higher dimensional light where this unconditional love that we're all meant to experience that we haven't yet in the third dimension is available to us. And so it was sort of like, here's the process you're about to go on. And I didn't know anything about an awakening at the time. So I just knew that there's something profound and significant about that dream. 3 months later, on June 21st, at the time I was working in the healthcare technology industry, and I was sent on a conference, and I was, you know, well, I don't want to say probably, I was drinking at the time, like kind of partying, with my coworkers, if you will. Um, and I was just kind of humaning. And it was the next morning after that conference, before I headed back, I decided to get a deep tissue massage. So I will add that detail in there because maybe that person was an energy healer of sorts. Maybe they like opened up a chakra or kundalini. I don't know what it was. Or maybe it's just my DNA was timed to go off and awaken at that particular moment. But all I know is I walked out of there, and that's when this moment of energy, this wave of energy hit me. And, you know, the description and the feelings that I received were what many do describe, when they cross over to the other side, like nothing can bother you and you just feel love. And that's what we want to feel all of the time. And so I just knew this is available to us, but then I had to take a good look in the mirror and figure out, okay, what is keeping me from feeling that all of the time? And that's when the real work sort of began, where I had to kind of go through a dark night of the soul, work on balancing myself within and opening up to something bigger than myself. And that's when my channel sort of awakened or reawakened, I will say.
Did you just spontaneously start channeling, or how did that happen?
Sure. So if I go back in time, there were moments definitely in my childhood where I channeled. Particularly one that sticks out to me was I was raised Catholic. And I was in a catechism class, which is just to learn more about Catholicism and be confirmed into the religion and all of that. And so I remember channeling Queen Elizabeth at the time, the first, and a message was coming through. And I shared that in the class, and the class laughed, and I ended up getting kicked out of this classroom, and I got in trouble. And there were some other moments like that if I look back. But eventually I kind of shut down because it led me into trouble. I didn't really feel supported when I shared or believed. And so I feel like the awakening not only reawakened that channel, but then opened it up to a larger degree. So from mediumship to angels to galactics.
About 9 years later, in 2018, is when you had your first ET contact?
Yes, that is correct. So I would say, like, what was happening in between that time with this reawakening of the channel, um, there would be information that would come through, but I didn't connect it with a particular source. So it talked about like going on this ascension experience and talked about like love, a lot about love and humanity and this great change and how to kind of get there. But like I said, I also kind of went through a dark night of the soul. So there was loss in there was heartbreak. And in 2018, where I was in my life and the energy that shifted and reopened in my channel, I had this very first galactic experience with an Andromedan, and who I discovered was named Patu, who I later discovered was a guide that had been with me my whole life, but I had forgotten much of that. It was veiled for a reason. I originally thought that this being was a male because it was bald, it was tall, but kind of like crouched down just to like not like feel so um like daunting to me, but I didn't feel scared or anything like that, even though previously there were some frightening experiences with like media and stuff like that that I had attached in my mind. But when I was in the presence of this Andromedan being, I felt nothing but just love, calmness, and a familiarity that my mind couldn't reconcile at the time. So this being was just there and made presence about 3 times just to kind of get me used to it. And then it would like, or she, I should say, Patu would show me experiences. So without really speaking words, just kind of almost like sending me beams of visions and trying to show me this is a celebration. This is what we're trying to this is what we're trying to help heal and support on your journey. And that's what opened it up. But from there, that just like opened the door to many different galactic beings and experiences. So that was just the start.
Was Patu showing you these things during your waking consciousness or meditation or dreams?
That's a great question. So I have had experiences in meditation, dreams, and later on in plant medicine. But this very first experience was as if like you were standing right next to me. So this was eyes open and seeing a presence. And so, but what I could describe though almost is like, I don't feel like there would be like a touch that would be solid. It felt like kind of almost like partially translucent, like almost like holographic, if you will. Um, but the biggest part of the experience, besides the visual, was just the vibration. Like even if I go back there, I can feel and tune into the energy source of that experience, which that just feels very, very good to me. But bluish green was the color, bald and still like humanoid in shape and form. So almost if you were looking at myself with no hair and like bluish green coloring.
I'm assuming the being was translucent since you physically couldn't touch it.
Well, it's interesting. It's only like later did I reflect on that. Um, but I never even like that thought didn't even cross my mind at the time. It was just like, whoa, this presence is there, like standing right next to me. And that's just where my heart was. Um, yeah, I'm just feeling into that sensation. Almost like almost like if you can like imagine an auric field around a body, like the energy kind of like vibrating little particles. That's how I would describe it. Like that lightness around.
It sounds like that you're saying that it kind of looked like you. Is it possible that was you in another dimension, like you're a multi-dimensional version of yourself?
That's a fair question. And I have connected with aspects of myself that are, but this feels different. Patu does not like it. She has never described herself as a part of me. It's a part of just a larger collective of energies. And yeah, I just keep hearing there's more of us. So I don't believe that this is an aspect of me,
You
as some are.
you consider yourself to be a star seed, right?
I do.
Do you consider yourself to be an Andromedan or some other ET having a human experience right now?
I do. And Starseed wasn't the term that was given to me when I went through this awakening experience. So, like later, did I use the term Galactic Federation of Light, Starseed? At the time, they referred to me and others, because I'm not the only one, as guardians of the ship. So that's the term that they used. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit when we get into the UFOs. But why that term I think was used. But they referred to themselves not just the Andromedans, it was Arcturians, Palladians, those from Cygnus, Venus. There's a whole collective of different races, and they would identify themselves in the beginning as their star constellation shape. And I would have to like put this together and then feel the vibration and then later learn to recognize energy signatures. That's how they wanted to set it up. um, and they called themselves the United Nations of Stars, not the Galactic Federation. So as I was learning this information and trying to put this together like puzzle pieces, it took a little while for everything to register and make sense to me in a way that I understand it now.
What do you think your mission is during this incarnation?
Good question. My mission is to help people remember who they are, to be, breathe, and embody love, to help eradicate fear, to help people know that there's nothing to fear, that the process is really amazing, um, to nullify triggers within myself and help other people do that, um, so that they can love themselves and in turn love other people. So be very compassionate. Um, and then one of the biggest things that they shared was to help disseminate information. So high frequency light information, as well as some of this galactic information, like little packets of energy through light code activations, which is something that, they told me back in 2018. I wrote it down. I felt like it was important, but I didn't understand it till a little bit later, what that meant.
Let's fast forward to 2020 when you started seeing ships up in California.
Sure. Okay. I will say between that time, there is one experience that I feel called to share, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I've shared this before, but I'll just give you a real quick detail because I didn't see this ship at the time, but I was practicing ninjutsu with my partner at the time, who's a little over 6 foot. And he had stepped on my ankle and crushed it. This was in the summer of 2018. My galactic experiences started in February of 2018. Um, anyways, I crushed my ankle, thought that it was either broken or sprained, took a picture of it, sent it to my sister, and I asked her, should I go to the hospital? And she's like, yeah, that looks bad. It was, like I said, it was swollen, it was blue, different colors. Um, and then I was able to just sit for a second, and I heard almost like an intercom that came over and it was the Palladians, and they said, we had a light ship overhead, and don't you remember, you've already healed yourself? And I was like, what do you mean I've already healed myself? I looked down at my ankle and it started reversing the injury, and it went back to almost completely normal except for this little purple mark. I took a picture of it. I have it time stamped. And so I didn't see the ship, but they always want me to share that experience. So wanted to share that. So then fast forward to 2020, I'm in Idlewild, California. I was doing a vision quest, a shamanic vision quest that one of my earth mentors wanted me to go on. And so that just entails communing with nature, going on a kind of solo hike or walk and just connecting with trees, plants, animals, and just seeing like what wants to come through the channel. And so I had this moment where I connected with this tree, which sounds funny, but I have it like I recorded the experience so I could remember that I had this past life in Ireland, and I had this vision when I touched the tree of being a child in Ireland and talking to the trees, and then like other kids making fun of me for talking to this tree. And I don't know why, but in that moment, I had like this wave of emotion that came over me. And I just felt like all of this love, this energy of love. And so I had that experience, and then I'm recording it in my phone because I know I have to like document this and share this with my earth mentor. And I'm recording it in the phone. All of a sudden, this light beams across the sky. So I'm talking and I'm like, what is that light? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that light? And it's kind of like shape shifting and sparkly and dancing across. And this is kind of interesting, but I mentioned Guardians of the Ship earlier. And so just then when I said, what is that? The wind blew and I had my notebook on the ground, and it flew to that page, Guardians of the Ship. And it just like gave me chills. And so that was my first like visual UFO experience that I can remember. That was mostly just lights.
Do you see them often?
Yeah, I would say fairly often. I would say So that was my first one. The next sort of significant one was just a year later. And so in between that, I had done plant medicine retreats and I was shown you're going to see one of our ships. Okay. I don't know which particular, I just kept getting the letter S. So I will say that, like, I don't know exactly which ship this was, but that I would see it. And that message came through. I kind of forgot about it. And then on August 29, 2021, I was back in this little mountain town of Idlewild. This time I was driving home. It was at night around maybe like 7:30, something like that. And um I remember looking in the sky and first my brain trying to understand why I'm seeing a house in the sky because I thought like that's what I thought at first. And then I was like, wait a second, like it's just hovering. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like my mind went through those steps. It was huge. This thing was huge. It had 5 rows of windows, almost like it would look like the like plain windows because they were circular, but there were 5 rows. And this thing was like it was large. It was so huge. I would say like somewhere maybe between 50 to 100 feet above me. And this thing, it was very quiet, wasn't moving. It was partially cloaked in the clouds. And there was definitely like a vibration. There was a vibration. Um, and I will share this detail too. So I had called people immediately after this experience, and they said that I had seen a being. That's what I reported this to several people. It's been completely wiped out of my memory. So that's why I'm thinking about doing like quantum hypnosis or something, but or maybe it will come back. But I guess it's for a reason. That I don't remember what the being looks like or looked like that I saw on that ship. But that was one of the most significant experiences of the UFO ships that I've seen.
Now, afterwards, you also had a car accident. Did you have an NDE?
I had an out of body experience. So, yes, I did have a car accident. That was in 2023, February 19th. And this is all like in the same town of Idlewild. Um, I was driving to a client session and I was late. And I sent a message to this person to let them know I was late. And right after that, I lost control of the car. It was a little bit icy at the time. And I rolled down the mountain. And when I flipped over, I just remember like being in this bubble of light and everything normal senses. I should have been scared, frightened, like wondering, am I going to survive? But I was kind of like beamed out. And I will share, like, this took like days to kind of like integrate back into my body and to like move through this experience and to understand it. But what I saw and what I experienced was my dad who had passed away, an angel, and a mantis being. So mantis beings are another being that I work with. They're very advanced in light and sound technology, never talk. So it's different than like some people I know describe them as connection with grays and maybe like a scary experience, but I've only had positive experiences with these beings. And they did something to my heart, told me that my heart had stopped. And I can't validate if that's true because I did wake up from the accident, but I just know that by the time between the time I texted and the time I moved through this experience, 11 minutes had gone by of like no memory other than going up in this bubble. And they cleared some energy and said that I would have this multidimensional perspective when I came back into the body. And that's exactly what happened. So leading up to that, some relationships were out of alignment. There were some things out of alignment. But I understood in that moment that everything was perfect and the way that it needed to be.
When you were in the bubble floating above the accident, were you able to look down and see your body in the car there?
No, I just knew I was having fun. I knew I was having so much fun, and I was like, this feels fun, exciting, and there wasn't really that awareness. Like I felt like I was home wherever like this place was, this other dimension. Um and I knew that I had to go back. I knew I had to come back. And there was another time that um just over the summer that I went actually on a Palladian ship, and they told me the same thing. You have to go back. So enjoy your time on Earth. Um but yeah, no, all I remember is dancing in this light bubble and like feeling really good, feeling like really light, and like not having a body. And yeah, it was quick, it felt like.
Did you have any conversation with your father or the angel or the mantis being?
I didn't, but here's what's really interesting. It was just a presence. So I will say that there weren't any words, like just other than those knowings, like those telepathic insight, like you have to go back, you're going to have this multidimensional view. Like all of that stuff was kind of like just a knowing, if I could describe it, not like us talking, like almost like just these telepathic kind of packets of energy and information that were coming in. But what I will share is when the ambulance or the EMS person arrived, he took me out of the car and he said, "Whose footprints are these?" There was somebody else's footprints around the car. There was nobody else around the car because I had rolled off the mountain, and two trees actually were what prevented my car from rolling further. But there were footprints there, and he was convinced that somebody else was in the car with me. And because I hit my head and it was bleeding everywhere, that I didn't remember that. So there were mysterious footprints. So some people think that that could have been, my dad.
After that experience, did you have any significant changes like new abilities?
I don't know that I would quite describe them as new abilities as so much as enhanced. I will say that the way that I perceived my realities shifted. So I the Andromedans call it like the fourth eye. Some people call it the ancient eyes of Horus. But I could see things from a multi-dimensional perspective, meaning like beyond the third dimension of um, of why things happen and unfold as they do. And so that sort of shifted relationships and just how I show up in the day to day, and how I can kind of easily just stay in heart space. So I will say that. But in terms of channeling information and that sort of thing, that's always kind of been a part of me that reawakened, since I had that awakening experience.
Would you say that you're a trance channeler?
Um, Multidimensional, I guess, is just a multidimensional being. Sometimes I trans channel, but not all of the time. Trans channel would be when I feel safe enough to move out of the way and bring the energies through. But yeah, I don't get too caught up, I guess, in labels, but just as much as do what I do.
Does it happen to you spontaneously or do you have to like call them in?
Both. So here's what I will say. Like in the beginning, it was just coming through all of the time. And this information was coming through so strongly that I had to write everything down, because when I channel, I don't remember stuff as you would like if you were reading a book. and you're going back to information. It's like you have to almost reread what you channel. So that information was coming through all of the time. And I kind of got used to it. So I wanted to be in that realm and connect quite often. But, they would sort of step back when I needed to kind of move through the human experience or needed to ground. And so what I kind of learned over time was let them come to you. Let them come to you. So it depends. Sometimes they can. Like say I'm in a session or I'm in a channeled event, something like that we're calling in those energies together, definitely can. But if it's just me and my personal life, they're like, we know how to find you at the right time, right place.
Have you had any other big sightings of UFOs?
I have. So my next sighting would be over the summer. Well, no. Well, I take that back. So we talked about the big one that I had in Idlewild. And then in August of 2022, so this would actually be before the car accident, um, I was told to be up there and just to point the camera in the sky. And I actually have footage of that. Again, it's just, they look like light beams and they'll just cut at different angles. And then the other ones are more what we might call plasmoids, where it kind of looks like light shape shifting energies. So that happened in August 2022. Nothing quite like that giant experience with the windows. But then if we go to the summer, then there was an experience that I had where I was told to be in a particular place, particular time in a town that I wouldn't normally ever visit. And I went to this little town and I knew that I was going to connect on a Palladian light ship. And so I didn't know like how it was going to happen. And I tried to put in my mind like how it was going to happen. And I was going to like get beamed up and it was going to be so cool. But that's not what happened. I looked at the clock and it was, I don't know, maybe like 11 something. It was almost 12. I remember almost midnight. And then the next time I looked at the clock, like 4 hours had gone by. And so I had to check in with myself and ask, like, okay, what happened? And that's when I got my flash memory of being on a ship. So this moves from experiences of just seeing lights in the sky, different orbs um, to being on a ship. And so that particular ship looked like it was circular when I first stepped on it, like a circular oval. Um, and then you move through this sort of corridor onto this bigger, like oval kind of shape. And all I could tell you was that there is more work being done on my heart. Now, I don't know if this is just part to do with the ascension process and just kind of like, opening up the heart more, awakening the heart, or because I do actually have a physical genetic condition called HHT. So I do have some things that could be impacted in my heart. But whatever it is, it feels good, positive, and like a blessing. So I'm always like, okay, I'll take it. I'm open to it.
Have the ETs relayed any messages to you in order for you to share them with humanity?
Yes, and especially recently. So as you know, there's been lots of drone sightings, um, and there's been confusion. And so this message actually came through in 2018 originally, and I didn't understand it at the time. But they talked about like that man, somebody like human, would try to create some confusion around ships in the sky, and that they actually, the ETs, have true rescue ships and light ships. They're already here, they're in the sky, but that this confusion would be created to try to create distortion and try to potentially have some darker or negative agendas happening. And so when these drones started appearing, what came through my channel was that some of them are man made, even maybe most of them, but that there are actual UFOs that are legit that are in the sky too. And to begin sharing your experiences, that's the message. Share your experiences with the ETs. Like, not just for me, but to tell other people to share their experiences so that we can try to get the truth out there and not support this sort of confusion, distortion, and potentially fake kind of invasion agenda.
You said that they're rescue ships. Are they here to like take many of us off planet somewhere else, or what's going on?
Sure, that's a great question. So I call them rescue ships just because that's how it came through the original, like my original channeled message. But they're not going to rescue or save us in the way that we might think. Like, just like, okay, uh, planet Earth is sort of effed, and we're going to come rescue you. It's more for support. They will show up. And that's another message actually that came through too is ask, ask for our support. We will support you, but we won't do it with you. So part of that support could be helping with energy, helping raise frequency, helping with these light codes, helping with these cosmic rays that are coming through with the sun, helping to understand the process, that sort of assistance and support. I think eventually there will be contact when we're ready for it, but for some reason that timeline is sort of shifted. We're getting there. This is conversations like what we're having is soft disclosure. And so when we're ready, when our frequency has raised enough, then there will be contact. They're coming. That message has been coming through too, loud and clear.
Are they going to be assisting us with the Ascension?
I mean, they already are, but so yes and yes.
Yes and
Yes,
yes.
they're here doing already.
Have they told you or shown you anything that's going to be happening on Earth in the near future?
Yeah, let me get into that. Um, so there's like there's almost like the cataclysmic timeline of like what could be if we don't balance ourselves, if we don't balance the earth. But I don't feel like that's the timeline we have chosen as humanity. I believe that we chose the other one. So they said that it would be dark before, like there would be certain, catastrophic events. They called it, I think in my original channeling, they referred to it as a series of unfortunate events. They spoke to like just events that would happen to kind of help wake up humanity. And then as we're moving forward, all I can share is like it based on our timeline now that we have the power to move that experience up faster if we call for them collectively, that they could arrive in 3 years or less. And then they talked about how can I describe this? It's just it's like a wave of energy, a wave of light, sort of like what I described the experience that I had when I had the awakening, the unconditional love, the forgiveness, the connection. They're talking about a light wave like that that will hit humanity. And so that's what I've been shown, that we will move into this higher dimensional frequency and we will experience more of that energy. But first, other people will be hit with that wave, so they also know and trust and believe and open up their consciousness to the fact that this is possible. So it's almost like a wave of that energy coming in before we sort of go there.
So we're going to have open contact in about 3 years?
I'm hearing, I'm just going to tune in live and just share what they want, how they want me to express this. But they said that they're already here. Okay. So this open contact that we're talking about has already happened. They've already contacted some people, but you're asking on a mass scale. They're saying that there needs to be more fear shed, more open hearts. Open hearts will equate to open contact, both now and in the future. When I ask for a specific time, I'm seeing like 2027, 28, but they're saying that's where we have, they're not saying, they're showing now, that's where we have power to shift it. So they don't want to get hung up on a time, at least what comes through my channel, because of the fact that they want us to work on the things that will bring them through faster, which is shifting from fear to love and openness to receive that energy and that support. But it's also a part of our history as well, and that's part of the contact process too, as we become more aware and familiar with what our true past is.
Can you ask them, what must we do to prepare for this contact?
So this is where I feel it's important. I should say they, because that's what they're showing me right now. Um, that there is an angelic, God source creator presence in all of this. So they want me to first share that it's part of a bigger plan. It's part of a much, much bigger plan, a grander design. So it's not just ET's interdimensional galactics. It's like this has been coming for a long, long time. What can we do to prepare? So immediately what I'm seeing is like military putting their guns down, putting their weapons away. They don't want to be shot down in the sky, kind of a thing. Um, no more fighting, no more fear. And then they're showing me rise of kind of like uh, matriarchal type information, rise of the feminine to kind of balance out the masculine energies that have been ruling. Start asking, which was shared before, start asking for us and we will show up more. They're saying like it's that simple. Start asking. Start asking with an open heart. Anything else to share?
While you're connected with them, do they have an urgent message for us?
Well, they say all of the time, divine ecstasy is our birthright, just to know that we are owed this gift. Um, that disclosure, there is a post-disclosure world that is coming. They want us to join hands and sing our song of love. They're saying it's okay to laugh about it too, because it does sound crazy. um, but it's also true. And then I'm being shown March. I don't know what year, but March is going to be super significant. And just to come together. They want everybody to come together in unity. Like that's super important to our next phase of our ascension process. And then at that point we won't need sort of their support when we step into this unity consciousness, because we'll just already be there. We'll be one.
When you're channeling like this, are you connecting with Pleiadians or the Andromedans?
Actually, right now, who's coming through are the Arcturians.
Mm.
I call them the Arcturian councils or Council of Light. But they're saying that, yeah, there's many that are coming through all at different times of this interview. There's Andromedan energy here too.
Oh, you have 2 books?
I do. So the first book is it includes all of these channel messages that were coming through in 2018. And I took it off the market because I realized I don't want to sell this book. I just want to give the information out. So it's on my Instagram. It's just free. And then my other book is 15 Sacred Ceremonies with Ayahuasca, which is also available in electronic format for free on my website. And then, or you can get it at Amazon. But this one speaks to the awakening process and sort of what we spoke about. And then that one, like I said, is the initial messages that were coming through.
Well, it's amazing that you're offering them for free.
Yeah.
What is your website?
It is JamieVosLove.com.
Well, is there anything that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I'll talk about a couple of things that might want to come through. One, I will share, going back to the Arcturians. There's something that I call the Arcturian way, and that is just to work on anything that angers us, makes us scared, anything that makes us judge somebody else. We can just go into heart space and move faster if we go to a place of love. And I will say, like, my experiences with the Arcturians were different than um, some of the other galactic races. And I would say, like, this is more so the Arcturian Council. It's not the same Arcturians that you hear described by many as like kind of a blue being. This was a very high vibrational, like almost angelic presence. And they come with a lot of like pink hues and crystalline energy. And they're just wanting to share that all of this information that we shared today, that we discussed, everything that's in my book is inside of us. And so that will be part of our awakening process. And they're showing that, like, there's going to be a very big awakening wave, like another round in the next 6 months. And so if you were to check back on contact, there's going to be just so many more. You're going to hear from so many more people that are having these new sort of experiences. Yeah, so I'll share that to start. I'll also share that for me, my journey was plant medicine that sort of helped with trauma. So I didn't really speak about that, but that's a big part of the journey, is to go into the place of what we have experienced before that sort of disconnects us from each other, or from just being into our heart space all of the time. And working with plant medicine sort of reconnected me, and shared and showed me just how much that impacted my life and how important it is to heal that. And there's another reason why that's important, because to open up to contact, some of us have fear from indoctrination, being raised in certain religions that might share that this kind of stuff is scary or demonic, negative. And so going into whatever that is for each person individually will be important, just to help introduce or open the heart to this kind of next level of consciousness. Yeah. And we will have another round, I will say, of codes of ascension. And so for anyone who is interested in doing activations, that's something that, or if they want to learn more about contact, how to make contact, how to connect with their starseed lineage, or any kind of star constellations that may be wanting to connect or show up in their life, and that's something that will be available through our website in April.
If people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, are you open to that?
Sure, I love
What's
it.
what's the best way to contact you?
Either through Instagram, which is just at Jamie Vos Love, or on my website there is an inquiry button.
All right. Don't you have a YouTube channel as well?
I do. Yep, at Jamie Vos Love on YouTube.
What kind of videos are you producing there?
Channeled videos. So when you were asking, like, do you ask for them to come, or do they sort of come? They will wake me up out of bed sometimes. And when I say they, like, primarily it's been Palladians and Andromedans as of lately. Like, it changes over different parts of your journey and process, depending on like who wants to connect to you and why. Um, but when there's a message to share, then I just get that little nudge and I just know it's time. It's time to do
They'll just wake you up. Jamie, wake up. It's time to make a video.
it. Yeah, it's like you learn to recognize the energy signature, the first time that you make that connection and you feel it, and then you can later just understand like who it is immediately. So it's a really cool feeling to have, and I love to connect with those energies.
When you first started connecting with them, did you ever have any doubt? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Great question. Yes, I did have doubt. So here's how they described it to me. They're like, this is your Mount Everest, and you have to get really comfortable talking about this. And it's so funny because I've been doing this for years. And, as I start sharing these experiences, I can feel sometimes that there's still like a little place within that like needs to have some more compassion and like less judgment, because like I said, being raised Catholic and in a family that kind of like, looks at this in a certain way, I've had to really clear up all of that. So the doubt was quelled, I would say, by having experiences validated over and over again. So, for example, we talked a lot about ETs, but they also were supportive in saying, help people through their grief, help people connect with their loved ones from the other side. They actually like encouraged me to do that and shared that. So I have this other part of me that does mediumship, right? And one example of that that really kind of blew my mind one time was I was doing a reading and I kept hearing to share porcupine, the animal porcupine, with this gal. And I shared it with her, and I knew it was coming from her dad. And the look on her face was just, oh my gosh, that was the animal that we chose when he was sick, and he was getting ready to transition. that that would be a sign from him, because she said to him, before he passed, a bird or something that was just totally generic would just be too obvious or plain, and I wanted something that was very specific. And so stuff like that, came through from galactics and angelic realm as well, like that you're going to do other stuff with this information. So I had doubt and uncertainty along the way, just when it was coming through to me. But then by sharing the information and having it validated over and over again is what made me trust. And so now I just trust it. So if I get pinged by the Palladians at 3 a.m., I'm coming out and sharing the message.
Well, that's great. Jamie, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Sure. Our hearts are so big. We have so much love to give. We want you to be excited about your journey and this process. Who is we? We are the Palladians. We are here to cheer you on. We are so, so incredibly excited for you. Humanity is starting to remember who they are, where they come from. The rest is up to you. You get to make the choice. And then they're just showing me small things matter, small acts of kindness, love, compassion. And then I'm getting this image of kind of like as if you were looking in water and seeing your reflection. And then the water is just like kind of clearing around the mind and the pathways. And just that we are going through this purification process is all. So there's nothing to fear. Our egos are shedding. Our hearts are getting bigger. We're roaring louder like the lions. And then that's where I'm showing, then they're like expanding out bigger and showing me like layering consciousness and all of these things that have been seeded in humanity. They're all part of the picture.
Jamie, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor.
Well, the honor was all mine. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.